Prologue. Deep in the depths of the space surrounding the world, there lives its timeline's source. Like a thread knotted at the end, a line of time stretches from it in infinite length, forward forever, so distant its future cannot be clearly seen. On occasion, the rivers of time are manipulated, rippling the space surrounding the thread, causing it to split. The more a thread has frayed, the less capable it is of holding its structure, especially if a branch has lost its magic. Its strength will wane, its length will shorten, its life will wilt to nothing. But it exists to feed the source, and magic-filled lines reinforce its might. Cut a magicless thread from the knot, and it only grows stronger. No mundane, infinite line pulling at it. In this way, the source, the knot, remains forever strong. This is how the death veils were formed. Acute, condensed knots of source, rooted in time and space. Spirits who leave a timeline are thrown into that space, and the source-consumed black holes magnetize them. A sentient gravity inhaling souls unwillingly into the knot. When a soul has shed its living shell, it does not choose its destination. It is pulled to where it is wanted.
Chapter 1. The Beautiful Mundane. I was always lonely. Even when accompanied by the ones I loved the most, I felt a dread. In a world so empty of mirth, the push to feel happy became more difficult with each attempt. There were no rules, none that I had to follow, yet I felt constricted by chains. The only pull that kept me breathing through my dread was the love of my little brother. Perhaps if I had made a different decision, I would no longer feel this way. But after everything, I am still lonely. I had often wondered, especially in childhood, what lay on the other side of life. Would it be a paradise, as many of us often presumed? Living in the beautiful mundane, as my father liked to call our world, meant you faced the mundanity hoping to experience the kind of magic only love could generate. You had to truly work for that feeling, earn it. But if you never earned it, what would the after want with you? If you failed to make the best of the mundanity, what was left, other than just another void? The sun still rose, the moon still phased, the wind still blew, and the flowers still bloomed. But our land lacked something. None of us knew what exactly, but we all felt it. Until there was nothing left of that land for any of this to matter. When the last earthquakes rattled the ground beneath us, tumbling our homes into rubble and lighting our very lives afire, I sat amongst the burning flames and held my brother's dying form, listening as he expressed the same ruminations I'd had regarding death.
What if there's nothing, Yoki?
He muttered through tears and pain. I tried to ignore the flesh melting off of his neck and coughed through the smoky haze surrounding us. There is light, I lied to him, pasting a fake smile onto my face. There is a sky bluer than you've ever seen, rainbows scattered across the expanse, millions of the greenest trees, treasure in the oceans to discover, and I'll be there. You'll find me waiting for you. His charred lips lifted.
I want to take my mask with me.
My gift to him 4 years ago. The mask that changed my life from mundane to magical. You'd think I earned it, but my story was not so simple. After all, that mask now burned in his bedroom. You will have it, I promised. A change in his eyes, then. Glaze. A deadness. He morphed from a person with life and potential and magical love to a husk. An empty vessel of skin and sinew. I resolved then to burn with him. When I recount this story now, I still find it difficult to describe what happened next. I could simply say that time slowed to a crawl and stopped. But this would not be accurate or just. Time stuttered. It skipped and twisted like a hot metal manipulated into a weapon. It grew and then shrank, changed shape, oblong and then square, expanding into a three-dimensional sphere, and contracting again into a single solitary point in space. All this occurred within the span of milliseconds, I supposed. It was impossible to tell for sure. When time was done with its little dance, then it stopped, and at the end of one blink, there appeared a being in front of me.
You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?
She said in a matter-of-fact tone. She considered me, as I tried and failed to move my brother's hands, stuck in time. As I noticed how the once raging fire seemed so much more defined when paused, the detail of the flames as clear as the colors and threading patterns of his irises. I could not speak, my voice paralyzed, but the radiant being owned a voice crisper and clearer than those frozen flames.
I have never understood the appeal of houses,
she murmured, gazing about my burning abode and pulling her arms to her chest.
They only trap you.
Her words pulled my own gaze to her. To say such things in the midst of calamity. Who was this odd creature, turning up in my bleakest moment and halting my forward sprint into death's cold arms? How dare she? I studied her. She appeared human. A body, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head of long, wildly curly black hair. Eyes as blue and cold as northern ice scapes. She did not smile, nor did she frown, she simply was. But I knew, without reason, that a goddess stood before me. Or was she floating? I cannot remember. Whether she spoke frivolously before, she did no longer.
I am destroying your timeline,
she declared. Environmental disasters that had plagued us for months flashed behind my eyes. They had been triggered by nothing, random and deadly. The reason my home burned and my family perished.
But a funny thing happened, surface being. As I sent the last toil into your land, I sensed a pull. Inexplicable, it felt. Surprising and daring.
She became more animated, those ice-blue eyes sparkling. As her excitement grew, so did my fear of her.
Magic, Surface One. I felt magic in a magicless world. This place used to have it, but over thousands of years it died out. So forgotten. But now I see the spark returning.
Pains me even now to admit that I knew exactly what she meant. 4 years it had been since the event that changed my mundanity. I considered my soul that of an artist's, if I should be so bold. Painting, crafting, woodworking, music, every form of creative pursuit called me. And one day, I tried my hand at mask making. The first mask I ever crafted was for Yakedo, my brother, on a holiday we called Roots Day, a day dedicated to our world's trees. We celebrated them, as they were known to provide the very air we breathed. In a magicless world, we had to appreciate the parts of it that felt magical, the parts we didn't fully understand. As a child, I'd always felt the trees were sentient. I'd imagined they spoke to me, telepathically, that they recognized my empathy for them, that they could feel when I touched their rugged trunks. This hope was, of course, unfounded. Though the trees were indeed alive, they held no consciousness within them. That Roots Day, I handcrafted a mask from the fallen bark of a cottonwood tree that grew just outside of our home. When the season shifted, fluffy white seeds floated from the branches, coating the ground, the roof of our house, and settled in my brother's hair. He rarely stayed inside. his passions lying in nature, and as our parents would call him in at the end of the day, I would tease him. "Old man," I'd joke, "your head is whiter than grandfather's." Then I'd tussle his hair until the seeds scattered across the floor, and Mother condemned us to our room. The cottonwood was his favourite breath-giving tree. The branches, when broken, held star shapes in their centres, a reflection of the sky we'd like to claim. Mysterious and strange. So I carved the bark into a reasonably recognisable shape, attempting to emulate a star. What I did not realise at first was how my focus became so singular, so undeniable that the world around me fell away, and my heart took over, as though my hands morphed into tools, connected directly to my soul. The core of me was doing the carving, not my hands, not my eyes, some centre of me that understood how the art should be brought to life. This may not make sense to the layman. The feeling of something unnamed inside of you possessing your limbs, it is a bracing, yet meditative experience. The other truth I did not realize was that this experience was magic. Real magic. While I carved, I hummed tunes that seemed to originate from that core. When the mask was finished, a piece of my soul had been absorbed by it. It was not a thieving of me, or an evil disruption. It was healing. I felt healed. Just a fraction's worth, but a healing of a part of me that I did not know required it. I did not discover this right away. It took years for me to understand my innate ability, and to this day I am unsure of its scope. But this goddess, this unanticipated character in my story, detected my magic from innumerable layers of time away.
I wish to save you from this chaos.
The goddess claimed.
You must survive. You are important.
A shift brought all of my thoughts in line in an instant, as my ability to speak returned. One would think, with a sound mind, I would have first asked the strange being what she was. Instead, I asked her name. The goddess smiled then, revealing a shiny row of pearl-white sharpened teeth.
I am called Hammet.
No sound of a name had ever given me the sort of shiver that snaked down my spine. Hammet. Why are you destroying my world? I again felt as though this was a useless question. What did it matter why? She had already killed my entire family, but my curiosity prevailed.
Magicless timelines only serve as an imbalance. They disrupt the melody of time, act as blockades to further blooming of worlds. Your line of time became a nuisance to me.
She spoke as though my world was a disgusting bug that must be squashed. Anger bubbled up inside my heart at her words. I decided politeness and decorum were unnecessary. I was already at the brink of death. Why not say what I truly thought? You have murdered my family, Hammet. They were not a nuisance. This boy in my arms was my little brother, and you have burned him to his grave. If you allow me to live, as you claim you wish, I will do the same to you. Perhaps I should have been afraid of Hammet's potential reaction to such a claim. And I knew it was an empty one, for what mortal could ever harm a god? But neither of these truths made any difference to me. Hammet smirked.
How quaint. Your magic instills a confidence in you.
She gazed upon me as one would a kitten. It is not magic, it is rage. I stood, releasing my brother, his body half floating where he lay frozen in time. You've destroyed more than my timeline. I've nothing to live for. Just take me out along with your magicless world. I cannot stay anyway if there is nothing here. Hammet tut-tutted, shaking her head.
Oh, mortal, you misunderstand me. I do not mean to leave you here alone.
I paused, unsure what emotions struggled within me at her admission. Then, what is it you mean to do with me? Her lips curled into a sneer, showing off those sharp blades in her mouth.
I will phase you into another world, one where your power can thrive. One where there is no imbalance, only the purity that magic imbues, and you will see what is on the other side of mundanity.
The other side. Yakido's words echoed in my ears.
What if there's nothing, Yoki?
A song came to my mind then. One that I once hummed into existence while crafting his Rootstay mask. The one that healed a part of me, as though a piece of my soul was transported. This magic Hamet sensed I had within me. I knew it to be real as well. And while I did not understand it, did not realize its full potential, I knew that if I had an opportunity to survive this annihilation of my world, I might be able to use it in a place that supported it. For something good. For something better than this. What if, somehow, I could bring my little brother back? I gazed once more at the walls, ablaze around me, at my brother's slackened face, and then to Hamet's icy blue eyes. "All right then," I said with my voice quivering. "Do what you must." As Hamet's gaze lightened with joy, I felt resolve settle within me. If I could not bring him back, then I would end my life within whatever world I lived. Because my existence without him meant less than nothing. I had, indeed, met with a terrible, terrible fate. In the 10 years during which I lived in Hyrule, I learned much about magic. While my homeworld functioned just fine, having little magic to speak of, this world depended on it. Without it, Hyrule and its surrounding lands would fall into chaos, much like my own did. Magic served as its foundation. It lived in the roots of its trees. It kept the world alive. And over its generations, it had been threatened with annihilation countless times. Once I agreed to Hamet's offer of phasing me to a different line of time, she confessed a stipulation. Of course there was a catch. She was a goddess of the grey. Not necessarily an evil being, but not good either. Somewhere in the middle, where lines were crossed and boundaries broken. Yet every move she made boasted a purpose and an innocent beginning. She destroyed my world only because its lack of magic caused other worlds to fall into disarray. She was in charge of all timelines, of ensuring they survived. She was only making the moves she was meant to, according to her. This did not relieve me of any grief, however. My brother was still dead. My world still disintegrated. My life still meaningless. But 10 years of living in a magic-filled world gave me just a small bit of purpose. A way forward. At least, I dreamed that it would. A hazy autumn morning greeted me as I descended the stairs from my modest loft above the shop into the courtyard below. Few shopkeepers were about, as it was early, and none of them acknowledged me, except for the bazaar owner, a pleasant bearded man who gave me a wave. I was a newcomer, after all, and had yet to gain their trust. The smell of the cobblestone street wafted up, and I inhaled its stony scent. Something about this place had always given me a sense of peace, even at its busiest. The rush of day when the market's fruits and vegetables sweated in the sun, the sleepiness of night when the town's dogs ruled the streets. It was a place where life swelled, a remarkable undulating and lifting cycle that never ended. Perhaps it was life itself that called to me. Considering where I'd come from, all life besides my own having been wiped out, it made some sense. I unlocked the door to my newly opened shop, gazing up at the stark white, happy mask arches gracing the facade of the building. I designed them myself. Quite proud of the result, I must say. For the better part of a month, many of the children who ran about Castletown had been peeking through the windows and gossiping about what they might find inside when the shop finally had its grand opening. As of today, they would discover its secrets, and the town was abuzz with excitement. I could feel it in the air. Over the past decade, I'd had odd jobs here and there, making enough to survive through life, but only just. The recently ended civil war had tanked Hyrule's economy, and many Castletown shops that had taken root there for generations had closed. I saw an opportunity to lease one of the empty buildings, and here I was now, lighting the torches of the colourful lamps I'd installed, making incremental adjustments to the decor, and quadruple checking the ornamental sign that would enlighten my customers of the shop's mysterious purpose. I'd been planning this grand opening for months, and seeing it all come together made me smile. I certainly did not smile sincerely very much these days. These past 10 years had been a gift, according to Hermet, but her stipulation made every single day wrought with anxiety rather than relieving. I was alive. I had been given the time to research my innate power, and magic was an accepted and unrivaled reality here. But Hermet's looming presence remained. She had cautioned that I would owe her. Once she phased me, my life, my magic, my very existence would belong to her. It was only fair, she'd claimed, that her gift of life to me should be met with whatever she desired. And she desired my power. For a decade, I'd been balancing on an edge, fearing her wild eyes would pop into existence at any point. She'd made me swear that I would be at her beck and call, no matter in which timeline I lived, no matter what age I reached, no matter what illnesses might plague me, no matter my own desires for my future. I was to serve Hermet, if she ever called upon me. I thanked the gods, minus Hermet, of course, every single day that she had not yet made good on this demand. And perhaps she never would. But I was to hone my magical ability as much as I was able in this world, so that when she was ready, she could use it to her advantage. The only reason I agreed was my fleeting hope that my magic might have some unknown capability to bring my brother back. That honing it, as she wished, would accomplish that. And while I'd had 10 years to entertain that concept, I'd gotten close, but had not yet fully obtained the knowledge. Every step towards it was progress, however, and so I remained alive and worked at it each day. This was my singular purpose. My shop was just a bonus. I needed a creative outlet, and the shop became my solution. Masks were the name of my game. I'd made many since the Roots Day mask, and had experimented with songwriting as well, in tandem with their crafting. For some reason, only certain songs resonated with my masks, including my Song of Healing, a name I dubbed that tune I conjured so long ago. Otherwise, each of my songs held quite specific powers unrelated to masks, and all unanticipated. One made grass grow longer, but only grass. Another caused stone to crack. Some did nothing, and others accomplished quite impactful feats, but none felt so powerful as my Song of Healing. Took my place behind the shop desk and folded my hands, taking a breath of anticipation, my heart thumping against my chest in time with my buzzing nerves. The trading game I'd created for my masks was a risky venture. I only required payment once the masks were sold by my customers. If they were never sold, well, I'd never be paid. But my hope was that the game would speak to those with a penchant for undertaking challenge. After all, the reward for successfully selling all masks was rather grand, if you ask me. I discovered that masks made in this timeline were quite often magical all by themselves. Some were simply meant for silliness, but most had some sort of ability, even if one never uncovered it. A strange coincidence, considering my love for crafting them. Hours passed. Castletown bustled outside. Shops opened and people rushed about. I could hear them passing by my shop, but no one entered. I stood for a while, giving it time, hoping someone would take the risk and step inside, but eventually my legs grew tired, and I sat in silent disappointment. Perhaps the excitement I'd felt brewing around my grand opening was not as prevalent as I'd hoped. I pondered closing for the day, but rerouted my mindset. I must try harder. The sun stabbed my eyes as I stepped outside. I saw some market regulars pawing at the fruits across the square, a line forming outside the bazaar, and children running about, playing with a town dog. No one noticed me. The medicine shop owner walked past, distracted with a bundle of clinking glass, and I hailed him on a whim. "Toro! How have you fared in sales this morning?" I asked him, wondering if the busyness of the place was simply imbalanced for an unknown reason. Toro stopped, and dismay shadowed his face. He was not one to hide his thoughts, which I sometimes appreciated, and other times abhorred, depending on his mood. He was one of the shop owners who seemed to very much dislike my presence there.
Ah, Yoki. I've done well today. Had to restock my bottles twice already.
He smiled in a smug way. I see. Well, Congratulations. I wish you continued success. I gifted him an insincere smile that I hoped he didn't see through, but he didn't seem to notice.
And yourself?
He asked, an obvious expectation saturating his demeanor. He knew already what my answer would be. Well, it is still early. Toro was patently skeptical.
Indeed. I wish you success as well, Yoki. Your ideas are unorthodox, but perhaps they'll gain some traction if you push very hard.
Toro knew as well as I did how pushy salesmen were viewed. He was giving me bad advice on purpose, but I smiled again anyway, as he went on his way, clinking his bottles. I took one last look around Castletown, straightened my jacket, and went back inside the shop, feeling a certain kind of defeat that was oh so familiar to me. I'd been ripped from my home, forced into a timeline in which I was not meant to live, and given an anxious disorder for it all. Nothing had ever gone to plan, so why should I expect this to? As I rounded the shop desk and made to sit down again so that I could wallow in my failure, the bell above the shop door rang clear and crisp. Startled, I glanced up to see a patron walking in. Quite the stoic look on his face. His blue eyes darted around the shop, not so much to see what was there, but more to ensure he was safe, it seemed to me. I watched as he skimmed the sign instructing how the trading game was to work. As he read, I assessed him. A child, perhaps 10 or 11 years of age, the age my brother was when he passed. He was dressed uniquely, all in green, wearing a pointed hat, an oversized tunic, and worn boots. He wore a sword and shield on his back, clearly meant for fighting. A child this young, though participating in combat? It seemed extraordinarily uncouth. I wondered where his parents were, but my clientele was not limited by age, so I could not refuse him. The boy trotted up to the desk, and I smiled wide, putting on my overly practiced salesman visage. My very first customer. I decided, regardless of his odd look and concerning weaponry, I should treat him as special as the first customer deserved. "Would you like to be a happiness salesman?" I asked him, beginning my pitch with the fervor of a madman. I'd practiced it in the mirror day after day, ignoring the irony of a happiness pitch when happiness was so far from my own reach. "I'll lend you a mask. You sell the mask and bring the money back. After you've sold all the masks, you will become happy yourself. Have faith." Have faith. A motto I'd subscribed to over the years. Years without my brother. Years attempting to determine if I'd ever see him again. Years of failure, of small successes, of breathing through the trauma of my life. Years of faith. I wished it upon everyone else because what more could you cling to in a time when all seemed wrong? The boy only considered my proposal for a moment, and then pointed to the mask situated on the shelves behind me. He said nothing in reply, but I could tell what he wanted to know. "Ah, yes! You may start with the Keaton mask, a very popular one among the children of Hyrule." The Keaton mask was a non-magical one, which I arranged on purpose. If one were to discover the magical properties of some of the masks I had for trade, I figured it should be later on in the game. I'd ease them into it, especially the children. Magic could backfire, after all, even in the safest of environments. The boy nodded, his eyes full of fascination. Over time, as a magic user and researcher, I'd begun to recognize when a person had the spark, the small, almost unseen indication that they too had some innate ability or specialness within them. And I now saw it in this boy. I could tell that he was destined for something great, and upon further reflection, had likely already achieved it. I retrieved the Keaton mask and handed it to him with a deep bow. "Please sell this mask for 10 rupees. Then you may return and receive another mask to trade. You might find that some masks are more interesting than others." I gave him a wink, and he returned a small smile, bowing back. "Good luck! And remember, have faith." As I watched my first customer leave my shop, a sense of calm settled in my chest. Perhaps all was not hopeless. Perhaps I should have more faith. Crickets and nightbirds chittered in the darkness of the square outside my loft window. I sat at a small table set against the wall and opened my journal, one I'd been keeping for a very long decade. Recently I'd been adding pages to it, as I'd covered every inch of the worn paper that I could with research notes, thoughts general and specific, and music I'd written. I would also jot down events that stood out to me each day, though ones worth mentioning were few and far between. Today, though, the journal warranted some attention. Grand opening of Happy Mask Shop today. Met a boy in green who agreed to trade the Keaton mask. My very first customer. He had something in his eyes that seemed significant. I have a feeling I'll be seeing him again. I'd like to know more about him, and why he wears weaponry at so young an age. Might he simply be playing another game? Or is he meant for a higher destiny? Time will tell. I let out a contemplative sigh as I turned the pages backward, reviewing my prior notes from the week. The tiny diagrams I'd drawn seemed to call to me, their shadowed meanings evading my mind. I was only just beginning to understand the machinations of timelines, how they connected and branched, but I still did not fully grasp what existed at their source. Something did. That much I knew. And my newly found assumption was that the very source could be where my proprietress took root. Hamet. Her manic gaze remained as clear in my head as it had the day she revealed herself to me. I allowed my memories to weave in and out of my consciousness, when she crossed me from timeline to timeline, and my home faded away from my view.
It won't hurt a bit,
she had claimed. That had been true, but the process was not without strangeness. I felt like my soul was being pulled apart for at least a few seconds, as she phased me from one dimension to another. But before she did so, she said something to me that I had never forgotten.
My fellows will not be happy about this, especially Saigo. He will pine your lack of death, but I am the ruler of timelines, and he will just have to deal with it. Jinsei will also be saddened that he could not simply bring you back from the brink. Oh, mortal, I wish you could meet them. They are all so very distinct in their ways. Their death veil may be calling for you, but I am the queen of disruption.
She cackled then, clearly reveling in whatever dissonance she'd be causing by sending me to Hyrule. The names she'd mentioned, they'd stuck with me. Saigo and Jinsei. I could only assume they were other gods, living in what she called the Death Veil. Gods with distinct personalities, responsibilities, powers. Ones that feuded with her hubris-laden decision to phase me. I'd always wondered if she'd gotten into any sort of trouble when returning to the Death Veil. Was there a ruling god there who would make that call? Or did they all run in a chaotic circle, making bad decision after bad decision, disrupting the balance of worlds on a whim? Since then, I'd kept those names close, and had researched as much as I could about gods and timelines. There was not much to discern from historic libraries available to the public, but one day, 5 years into my new life in Hyrule, I'd found a way to sneak into the castle and had done a bit of thieving of its private library. I'd stolen a few books that seemed relevant. Dimensional Space and the Magic It Takes, a dictionary of terms regarding time travel which also highlighted the famed power of a magical ocarina. And The Gods of, a book dedicated to all known gods and their subsequent authorities, among other texts that were written in ancient Hylian. I'd only just become fluent in the modern language, but I stole them anyway. Saigo had been easy to find. He was the god of death, quite simply put. But Jinsei remained undiscovered. I did not know if I had the spelling right, but every combination of letters revealed nothing. Even with the revelations I discovered in the reading of these titles, much of the research remained lacking, until I met a certain scientist who lived in a laboratory at Lake Hylia. I befriended him, and eventually let him in on my little secret, but only to a certain degree. He did not know I was from another line of time, only that I wished to learn about phasing. He did not know the reasons for which, either. I made certain to never speak about my brother aloud, just in case Hamet was listening somehow. A scientist he was indeed, but he was also a man of faith. He believed in the gods and goddesses that many Hylians worshipped, and claimed there was scientific evidence to prove their existence. But he also had no knowledge of a god called Jinsei. He was the one who told me about the theory of timeline sources, where a line of time's essence lived, the root of it, the start, the place from which a timeline blooms. The theory went that all timelines have a source, and that source is a place where the gods might live. I shut my journal with a snap. It was time to test something I'd been cooking up, something that had been eating at me for a while. I had to make a decision first. Which object was I willing to part with? My feather pen? No, it was the only one I owned. The button that popped off of my jacket the day before? Perhaps not, as I wished to sew it back on. After all, I had to look presentable for my shop. I settled on a pebble from outside. I was not willing to give up anything I owned. Not yet. Not until I perfected the spell. A spell, I was calling it, but truly, I had no sufficient word for the magical trick I had conjured up. I'd accomplished nothing like it before, but I had to practice it if I wanted to make progress towards my ultimate goal. I placed the pebble upon my desk and stared at it, studying its attributes, then closed my eyes and began to hum a song. A newly written one, crafted with my heart and love for my brother in mind. The very first song into which I'd been able to purposely instill a specific magical action. I called it the Song of Phasing. I felt a shift in the air, as though some of its substance had been stolen. And as I opened my eyes and looked down at the table, seeing the pebble missing from view, I knew I had done it. Now, if only I could learn to phase an entire person.
Next time on Master of Mirth. Saigo had noticed recently that the darkness seemed to fluctuate a little more often than usual, like waves rippling across the Deathvale plains.
Have you come only to beg for my throne? Or have you any news?
The timeline I've been monitoring. Things are picking up.
How goes it, Rango? Have your bows told any good jokes lately?
You look well, Sunzai. How's business?
None of yours.
And unbeknownst to anyone in the realm, a pebble popped into existence.
At first, I felt nothing. But then, a tug. A whisper in the air. An otherworldly whirring sound. They continued to laugh as several pirates broke off to fetch the shackles. I heard them rattling towards me, while the men continued to rile themselves up, yelling obscenities and promises of horrible actions they would have me perform.
Lick my boot.
What's going on here? What are you doing, you wretched pirates? Scatter!
It was becoming clearer to me now. These lines of time were just that. Time. I must move along them in order to reach the timeline source, where the Deathvale lay. My scream echoed across the mysterious landscape as they leaped towards me like spring-loaded spiders.
I haven't done anything to your precious Yoki, and if I had, I would have gladly admitted so.
Then he has discovered his ability.
You honor me with this display, Master.
Something is here. Veil as a visitor.